The chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered beneath an artificial sky, an engineered illusion of swirling galaxies and distant suns. It was beautiful, controlled, perfect. Nothing like the chaos humanity had come from. Ambassador Elias Varn stood alone at the center platform. No guards, no advisors, no fleet waiting in orbit. Just one human, surrounded by empires that had rewritten the laws of reality. The whispers started before he even spoke. They sent only one. Typical symbolism over substance. Do they even understand where they are? High above, seated upon a living throne of chitin and light, High Arbiter Cathral of the Zir Dominion leaned forward. Its many eyes focused on Elias like a predator studying something small and unimportant. Ambassador of Earth, Cathral's voice echoed, layered and heavy. You stand before the Council to justify your species' continued independence. A pause rippled across the chamber. Convince us, it added, that your kind is worth preserving as anything more than a protected dependency. Soft laughter spread in waves. Elias didn't flinch. His posture remained straight, hands behind his back, gaze steady, not defiant, not submissive, just present. We are not here to justify our existence, he said calmly. We are here to reaffirm it. A brighter, sharper laugh this time. A luminous delegate from the Valorian Trade Union flickered with amusement. Reaffirmation requires leverage. You have none. Your fleets are outdated, another voice added. Your expansion rate is inefficient. Your technological curve is behind. Your survival, a third voice cut in, is statistical luck, not strategic strength. The chamber hummed with agreement. Cathral raised a claw, silencing the noise. Let us speak plainly, it said. Your species is young, you lack galactic influence, you possess no deterrence capable of challenging even a minor council faction. Its eyes narrowed. You exist because no one has bothered to remove you. Silence followed. Elias tilted his head slightly. That's one way to see it, he said. Cathral's voice sharpened, then offer another. For a moment, Elias said nothing. Then he took a slow step forward. We exist, he said, because we learned something very early that most of you never had to. A faint shift passed through the chamber. We learned what happens, he continued, when intelligence meets fear, when ambition meets desperation, and when power grows faster than wisdom. The room grew quieter. Humanity didn't begin among the stars, Elias said. We began in conflict, not against aliens, against ourselves. Some delegates leaned in now. We fought wars before we understood peace, built weapons before we understood restraint, nearly erased ourselves more than once. His voice didn't rise, but it deepened. And every time we survived, we changed. A pause. You see a species with no record of galactic warfare, Elias said. What you're actually seeing is a species that finished its worst wars before it ever met you. For the first time, the laughter didn't come immediately. But Cathral broke the silence with a low, rumbling chuckle. A dramatic history lesson, it said, but irrelevant capability, not philosophy, defines power. It rose, towering now. The council has reached its conclusion. A low vibration filled the chamber as systems prepared to broadcast the decision across thousands of civilizations. Humanity will be reclassified as a dependent civilization, Cathral declared. Your sovereignty will be dissolved, your systems placed under council oversight for your protection. The words echoed like a final judgment. Effective immediately, it continued. Your fleets are to stand down, your defenses will be integrated, resistance will be corrected. A long silence followed. Then, denied. The word landed with impossible weight. Every eye snapped back to Elias. He hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. Humanity does not consent, he said. Cathral's gaze hardened. Consent is irrelevant. Elias exhaled slowly. Then this meeting is over. A ripple of confusion surged through the chamber. You do not dismiss the council, Cathral snapped. Elias glanced at his wrist and tapped a small device. No, he said quietly, but I can end our participation. Across the chamber, alerts began flashing. Delegates stiffened. Military channels flooded with incoming data. Fleet tracking systems, long-range sensors, deep space surveillance grids. All updating at once. Then failing. Report, Cathral demanded. A voice from the lower tiers trembled. High Arbiter, human fleet signatures are static. They're gone. What? Impossible. They can't mask that scale. We're detecting nothing, no drives, no trails. The chamber erupted into chaos. Elias turned and began walking toward the exit. Calm, unhurried. You wanted proof of relevance, he said over his shoulder. He paused at the threshold. Cathral's voice thundered after him, but now, there was something new beneath the fury. What have you done, human? Elias didn't turn back. Nothing, he said. A beat of silence. They haven't done anything, yet. He stepped through the doorway. And in that moment, every confirmed position of every human fleet in the galaxy vanished. Not hidden, not cloaked, gone. By the time the chamber regained control of its systems. By the time long-range sensors recalibrated. By the time fear fully replaced arrogance. It was already too late. Because by dawn, humanity hadn't just refused the council. They had disappeared. And for the first time in its long, unquestioned history, the Galactic Council didn't feel powerful. It felt blind. The first system to go silent wasn't important. That was why it mattered. On the outer edge of Zir Dominion space, Station K-47 orbited a dying red star, little more than a refueling outpost and long-range sensor relay. It had no strategic value, no political weight, and no reason to be targeted. Which was exactly why no one noticed when it stopped responding. At first, it was dismissed as a malfunction, then as a systems failure. By the third hour, it became inconvenient. Send a patrol, Cathral ordered from the central command spire, its voice cutting through layers of military chatter. Confirm status, restore communications. A routine command. A routine mission. 3 destroyers broke formation and slipped into warp, their engines tearing briefly through the fabric of space before vanishing into the void. They arrived to silence. Not the usual quiet of deep space, but something heavier. Oppressive. The lead ship slowed as K-47 came into view. The station was intact. Lights on, rotation stable, docking bays open. Control, we have visual, the commander reported. No visible damage. Boarding teams proceed, came the reply. Magnetic clamps locked. Airlocks hissed. And within minutes, armed units entered the station. What they found made no sense. No signs of battle. No depressurization. No fires. Everything was normal. Except, there was no one there. Commander, a voice crackled over comms. We're not finding any personnel. Check deeper sections. We have life support is active. Systems are running, but there's no biological presence anywhere on the station. A pause. Not even bodies. Negative. The commander frowned, unease creeping in. Search logs, he ordered. Moments later, another voice, tighter now. Logs are corrupted. Last recorded entry was routine maintenance, then nothing. Nothing, the commander repeated. No alarms, no distress call, it just stops. A chill settled over the bridge. Central Command, the commander transmitted, we're escalating. Station appears abandoned under unknown circumstances, no signs of evacuation. Before command could respond, every screen on the station flickered. Simultaneously, across corridors, control rooms, docking bays. Monitors snapped to life. A single message appeared. Plain, unadorned. We see you. The boarding teams froze. Who's broadcasting that? The commander demanded. Unknown source signal is internal, no external, no. Static cut the analyst off. It's coming from everywhere. Then the sensors began to fail. Not all at once. One by one. Long-range scanners offline. Thermal imaging gone. Targeting arrays not responding. The commander gripped his console. Bring them back online. We're trying, there's nothing to reconnect to. Outside the station, the three destroyers drifted in formation. Silent, unawares, until the first one disappeared. No explosion. No distortion. No energy spike. One moment it existed. The next it didn't. Ship 2 just dropped off scope, an officer shouted. That's impossible, recalibrate. There's no debris, no signal, just nothing. Panic began to fracture discipline. Visual confirmation, the commander barked. The forward cameras turned. And caught it. For less than a second. Something moved across the stars. Not a ship. Not a shadow. A distortion. Like space itself folding. Then Ship 3 vanished. The last destroyer was alone. Get us out of here, the commander roared. Engines flared. And died instantly. Dead silence. Every system flickered, then froze. The stars outside seemed wrong. Too still. Too close. Too aware. Commander, a whisper came from the comms. I think they're here. Who? He snapped. No answer. Then, a sound. Not through speakers. Not through sensors. Inside the ship. A low, shifting hum, like something vast moving just beyond perception. The commander turned slowly toward the viewport. For a brief moment, he thought he saw something. A shape. Massive. Watching. And then, darkness. The final transmission from the patrol reached Galactic Council space hours later. Fragmented. Distorted. Barely intelligible. But one line repeated clearly across every recovered channel. They're not hiding. Static. They're choosing when to be seen. Silence. When Cathral received the report, it did not laugh. For the first time, it did not speak immediately. Because this wasn't an attack. There were no weapons. No fleets. No signatures. Nothing to fight. Nothing to target. Nothing to understand. And yet, an entire station had been emptied. 3 warships had vanished. Without a trace. Without resistance. Without explanation. Across the galaxy, other outposts began reporting anomalies. Flickers in sensor grids. Unidentified signal echoes. Moments where space itself didn't behave correctly. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern. One that spread like a whisper through every military command structure. Humanity hadn't retreated. They hadn't fled. They hadn't hidden. They had changed the battlefield. And now, the war had begun somewhere no one else could reach. Or even see. By the time the Council realized what that meant, another system went silent. And this time, it wasn't small. The second system to vanish was not insignificant. It was vital. The Heshkar Trade Corridor artery of the Valorian Trade Union connected 12 core worlds, poolsing with cargo fleets, escorts, and automated defense grids. Thousands of ships passed through it daily. It was monitored, fortified, and until now, untouchable. Then, in less than 6 minutes, it went dark. At first, traffic control reported delays. Then lost signals. Then panic. Convoys stopped responding mid-transit. Escorts vanished from formation. Automated defense satellites blinked offline one by one like candles in a vacuum. When emergency scans swept the corridor, they found nothing. No wreckage. No radiation. No debris fields. Just empty space where an entire network of movement had existed moments before. It's spreading, a council analyst whispered, voice trembling, as data streamed across the chamber of the Galactic Council. Cathral stood unmoving, its many eyes locked on the projection. Define spreading, it said. Multiple sectors reporting anomalies, the analyst replied. Signal disruptions, sensor failures, isolated disappearances. Isolated, another delegate snapped. This is coordinated. By what? Someone else shot back. We have no signatures, no fleets, nothing. That was the problem. There was no enemy. At least none that could be detected. Deploy full-spectrum scans, Thrall ordered. Every frequency, every dimension, I want something to target. Across the galaxy, arrays activated. Quantum sweeps, gravitational mapping, exotic particle detection. They searched everything and found nothing until something chose to be found. In the ruins of the Heshkar corridor, a single cargo vessel flickered back into existence. Damaged, drifting, barely holding together. Rescue teams were dispatched immediately. When they boarded, they found survivors. Alive, but not untouched. They were there, one crew member whispered, eyes unfocused. Watching. Who? The interrogator demanded. I don't know, the survivor said, voice shaking. We couldn't see them, not really, just shapes between things. Between what? Between moments, he said. Silence filled the room. Another survivor spoke, quieter. They didn't attack us, she said, not at first. What did they do? They listened. The interrogator froze. Listened. They moved through the ship, she continued. Through walls, through space, like we were solid to them. Her hands trembled. They heard everything, every signal, every thought we spoke aloud, they were learning. A long pause. Then why are you alive? The interrogator asked. The survivors looked at each other. And for the first time, they hesitated. Because, the first one whispered, they let us go. Back in the council chamber, the recordings played in full. No one spoke when they ended. They're studying us, a delegate finally said. No, another corrected. They've already studied us. Thrall's claws tightened against its throne. This is not warfare, it growled. This is a demonstration, Elias Varn's voice interrupted. The chamber lights flickered. Every screen shifted. And suddenly, he was there. Not physically, but present, projected across every surface at once. You wanted proof of capability, Elias said calmly. You're experiencing it. Show yourself, Thrall roared. Elias tilted his head slightly. We are showing ourselves, he replied. This, Thrall gestured violently at the data streams, the empty sensor grids, the vanishing fleets. This is nothing, shadows, tricks. Elias' expression didn't change. Then why can't you stop it? Silence. Thrall didn't answer. Because it couldn't. We're not attacking your worlds, Elias continued. We're not bombarding your cities, we're not even engaging your fleets. Then what are you doing? A delegate demanded. Elias looked directly into the central lens. We're removing your certainty. A ripple of unease spread. You built your power on control, he said. On knowing where your enemies are, on seeing threats before they reach you. His voice lowered slightly. So we took that away. As if in response. An alert screamed through the chamber. High Arbiter, the analyst shouted. Flagship signatures in Sector 9 just. He stopped. Gone. Vanished. No, another officer said, voice breaking. Not vanished. They pulled up the last visual. A massive warship mid-formation. Then, a distortion. A ripple. And half the ship simply ceased to exist. Cleanly. Silently. Like it had never been there. No weapon discharge, the officer whispered. No energy spike, it just stopped existing, someone finished. Elias watched them all. Unmoved. This isn't a war you can measure, he said. This isn't a battlefield you can map. Thrall rose, towering, furious. You think this makes you strong? It thundered. Elias met its gaze. No, he said quietly. We think it makes us impossible to ignore. The transmission cut. The chamber plunged into silence. No one laughed anymore. No one argued. Because across the galaxy, ships were vanishing, fleets were dissolving, and the most powerful civilizations in existence couldn't even see what was killing them. For the first time, the galaxy understood something it had never felt before. Not defeat. Not yet. But something worse. Helplessness. And as another system blinked out beyond the edge of known space, a single realization spread through every command center, every war room, every mind. This wasn't escalation. This was just the beginning. And humanity still hadn't shown its full hand. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began without ceremony. No grand announcements. No formalities. No illusion of control. For the first time in its recorded history, the Council convened afraid. The chamber lights dimmed as thousands of data streams filled the air, vanished fleets, silent systems, fractured sensor logs. Entire regions of space now existed only as gaps in the map. Cathral stood at the center, no longer seated upon its throne. Summarize, it ordered. A senior analyst stepped forward, its form flickering under stress. We have confirmed losses across 37 sectors, it said. No debris, no energy signatures, no detectable engagement events. Cause, Cathral demanded. The analyst hesitated. Unknown. A murmur spread, low, uneasy, restrained. Another delegate cut in. This is not unknown, this is impossible. Nothing erases fleets without leaving a trace. And yet it's happening, a third replied sharply. A projection shifted, showing the last known recording from a vanished armada. Ships in formation. Perfect alignment. Then, a ripple. Not an explosion. Not an attack. A distortion. Like reality itself slipping. Half the fleet disappeared. The rest followed seconds later. Clean. Silent. Gone. They're not destroying matter, one scientist said slowly. They're removing it. Removing it where? Someone snapped. No answer came. Because no one knew. Another analyst stepped forward, voice quieter. We've been reviewing recovered fragments from affected systems, they said. There's a consistent anomaly. Explain. Moments before disappearance events, spacetime readings become unstable, not chaotic controlled, like something is rewriting local physics. The chamber fell still. Rewriting, Cathral echoed. Yes, the analyst said, as if the region briefly stops obeying our universe's rules and starts obeying something else. Silence. Then, that's not possible, a delegate whispered. No, the analyst replied, it's not supposed to be. Another projection appeared. Human research archives. Old. Fragmented. Dismissed years ago as theoretical nonsense. Until now. A single term repeated across the files. Phase displacement. They aren't cloaking, the analyst said. They aren't hiding behind shields or masking signatures. A pause. They're stepping outside of observable space. The words landed like a shockwave. Cathral's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting they exist where we cannot detect them. Yes. And from there, another voice added slowly, they can interact with our reality without being bound by it. Understanding began to spread. Uneven. Incomplete. Terrifying. They're not invisible, a delegate said. They're untouchable. Before anyone could respond. Every system in the chamber flickered. Hard. Violently. Defense grids dropped offline. Communication arrays froze. Energy readings spiked, then flattened. What is happening? Cathral roared. No external attack detected, an officer shouted. No incoming signatures. Then why are our systems failing? Because, the analyst's voice broke, because something is already inside our network. The chamber went still. Inside. A single transmission forced its way through every layer of security. Every screen, every channel, every mind connected to the system. Elias Varn appeared. Clear, uninterrupted, unstoppable. "You're beginning to understand," he said. Cathral stepped forward, fury barely contained. "You've violated Council space. You've attacked sovereign systems. This is an act of war." Elias shook his head slightly. "No," he said, "this is a correction." A ripple of anger spread. "You measured strength by visibility," Elias continued. "By fleets, weapons, territory." His gaze moved across the chamber. "We learned strength by absence." The lights dimmed further. Around them, systems continued to fail, one by one, without any visible cause. "You built an empire on control," Elias said, "so we removed your ability to control anything." "Show yourself," Cathral demanded. Elias almost smiled. "We are showing ourselves," he replied. And for a moment, just a moment, something shifted in the chamber. A flicker, a distortion. Shapes impossible, undefined, moved along the edges of perception. Not fully visible, but undeniably there. Watching, the delegates recoiled. "What is that?" someone whispered. Elias didn't look at them. "You're seeing the edge," he said, "the place we operate from." The shapes vanished, as if they had never been there. Cathral's voice dropped, quieter now, but far more dangerous. "What do you want?" Elias met its gaze. "For you to understand something you never had to learn." A pause. "What?" Cathral asked. Elias' voice softened. "What it feels like to be completely outmatched." The transmission cut. Instantly, all systems in the chamber shut down. Total blackout. No lights. No sensors. No communication. Nothing, for the first time since the Council's creation. It was blind. Completely, utterly blind. And in that darkness, a single thought spread through every mind present. Not spoken, not transmitted, felt. They could be here, right now, watching, waiting, and there would be nothing, absolutely nothing, anyone could do about it. When power finally returned moments later, no systems were damaged, no data was lost, everything was intact, as if nothing had happened. Except one thing. Every defense protocol across Council space had been quietly rewritten. No alarms triggered. No warnings given. But the meaning was clear. Humanity hadn't just entered the war. They had taken control of the battlefield itself. And worse, they could leave it. Whenever they wanted, the Zir Dominion did not retreat. It did not negotiate. It did not hesitate. For millennia, it had ruled through overwhelming force, crushing rebellions before they began, annihilating threats before they could grow. Entire civilizations had fallen beneath its fleets, their histories reduced to ash and data. And now, it would remind the galaxy why. "Mobilize everything," Cathral commanded. "No theatrics. No speeches. Just war." Across Dominion space, ancient shipyards awakened. War Titans, vessels older than some stars, ignited their cores. Planetary defense grids synchronized. Long-dormant weapons, forbidden by Council accords, came online without hesitation. Thousands of warships assembled. Then tens of thousands. Then more. A storm of steel, energy, and ancient fury gathered at the edge of the void, where human forces had last been seen. Or rather, where they had stopped being seen. "Target all anomaly zones," Cathral ordered. "Fire continuously, saturate every possible coordinate." "You'll be firing blind," one advisor warned. Cathral's eyes burned. "Then we will blind the darkness itself." The command was given, and the galaxy lit up. Beams capable of cracking continents tore through empty space. Gravitational distorters warped entire regions of vacuum. Exotic weapons, designed to destabilize matter at a fundamental level, were unleashed in waves. It was the largest display of raw power in recorded history. And it hit. Nothing. No impacts. No resistance. No reaction. Just empty space absorbing everything. "Maintain fire," Cathral roared. But beneath the fury, doubt had begun. "Energy reserves dropping," an officer reported. "Targeting solutions degrading, no confirmed hits. Sensor returns are inconsistent." "Inconsistent how?" Cathral demanded. The officer hesitated. "Space isn't behaving correctly." That was when it began. Subtly. At first, a single ship mid-formation flickered. Its outline blurred, like a reflection on disturbed water. Then it snapped back. "Stabilize that vessel," a commander shouted. "We're trying, it's not a systems failure." The ship flickered again. Harder this time. And then, half of it vanished. Cleanly. The remaining half drifted for a fraction of a second, before collapsing into nothing. Silence spread across the formation. "Report," Cathral said, voice dangerously low. "No weapon detected," the officer whispered. "No energy signature, it's just gone." Another ship flickered. Then another. Then 5 more. Panic began to ripple through the armada. "Break formation. Increase distance. Activate all defensive protocols." It didn't matter. Because distance meant nothing. Defense meant nothing. Visibility meant nothing. They weren't being attacked. They were being selected. "High Arbiter," an analyst said, voice shaking. "We're detecting signals." Cathral snapped toward the display. "From where?" The analyst swallowed. "Everywhere." The screens lit up. Thousands of signals. Surrounding the fleet. Inside it. Between ships. Overlapping space itself. Human signatures. Impossible. They hadn't appeared. They hadn't arrived. They had always been there. "You were never alone." The message echoed across every channel. Every system. Every mind connected to the network. Cathral's claws dug into the command platform. "Lock targets," it roared. "Fire on all signatures." "We can't," the weapons officer shouted. "They don't have fixed positions. Every time we try to lock, they shift. They're not in our space consistently." Another ship vanished. Then 10 more. Entire squadrons began to collapse into absence. No explosions. No debris. Just removal. "Retreat," someone screamed. But engines began to fail. One by one. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply unresponsive. As if something had reached into their systems and turned them off. "They're inside our networks," an officer shouted. "No," another corrected, voice hollow. "They're inside our reality." Cathral watched as its armada, its unstoppable, unquestioned symbol of dominance, disintegrated without a single confirmed hit. For the first time in its existence, it had nothing to fight. No enemy to crush. No target to destroy. Only a force it could not see. Could not reach. Could not understand. "High Arbiter," the analyst whispered. Cathral didn't respond, because it was watching the final moments of its greatest fleet. Ships flickered in and out of existence. Some partially, sections missing, impossible geometry exposed. Others vanished instantly. Clean. Final. The void where they had stood felt wrong. As if something else now occupied that space. Something unseen. Something patient. Something in control. A final transmission forced itself onto every remaining screen. Not distorted. Not broken. Clear. Precise. Elias Varn. You built your empire on certainty, he said calmly, on the belief that nothing could challenge you. Behind him, for the briefest moment, shapes moved. Massive, indescribable, not fully present, but undeniably real. You were wrong, Elias continued. Cathral's voice finally broke through, raw with fury and something deeper. What are you? It demanded. Elias looked at it. Not with hatred, not with triumph, but with something colder. Understanding. We're what happens, he said quietly, when a species survives itself and decides never to lose again. The transmission ended. And with it, the last of the Dominion's armada vanished. No wreckage, no survivors, no trace, only silence. Heavy, absolute, where once stood the most powerful military force in the galaxy. There was now nothing. And for the first time, the galaxy didn't just fear humanity. It understood something far worse. This wasn't a war. It was control. And humanity had already won. Before anyone else realized the game had even begun, silence spread faster than panic. After the fall of the Zir Dominion Armada, no empire moved, no fleets advanced, no retaliation came. The galaxy, once loud with power, trade, and conflict, became something else entirely. Quiet, watching, waiting, because no one knew where humanity was, or where it would strike next. Across every major system, emergency protocols locked down entire civilizations. Trade halted, borders closed, communications were restricted to encrypted bursts. Still, it wasn't enough, because the fear wasn't invasion. It was absence. What if they're already here? That question spread like a disease, and no one could answer it. Then, without warning, every network in Council space activated simultaneously. Not hacked, not forced, allowed. Screens lit up across thousands of worlds. Cities paused mid-motion. War rooms froze. Entire species looked up at the same moment and saw him, Elias Varn, clear still unshaken, broadcast everywhere, blocked nowhere. This message is for every civilization under the authority of the Galactic Council, he began. No distortion, no delay, as if distance itself had been removed. You called us weak, Elias said. His voice carried, not loud but impossible to ignore. You called us irrelevant, primitive, replaceable. Images flickered behind him. Not propaganda, not exaggeration. Reality. Human cities scarred but alive. Wars old, brutal, unforgettable. Moments of collapse, followed by survival. We didn't come from unity, Elias continued. We didn't inherit peace, we built it out of failure. The visuals shifted. Human fleets appeared, but not fully. Half visible, fading in and out of existence. Massive structures moving through something that wasn't quite space. We learned something none of you had to, Elias said. What happens when your greatest threat is yourself? A pause, and we solved it. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. You measure power by expansion, he continued. By territory, by the ability to dominate what you can see. His eyes hardened slightly. We measure power by survival. The images changed again. Alien fleets vanishing. Stations empty. Armadas erased without a trace. Not glorified. Not celebrated. Just shown. You think we attacked you, Elias said. We didn't. A ripple of confusion spread. We removed your advantage, he clarified. The assumption that you could see every threat, predict every outcome, control every battlefield. Behind him, something moved again. Larger this time. A shadow that wasn't a shadow. A presence that didn't fully exist. Human ships. Thousands of them. Phased. Watching. You've spent centuries perfecting war in a space you understand, Elias said. We stepped outside of it. The galaxy didn't react. It couldn't, because for the first time, it was listening. We are not here to conquer you, Elias said. That changed everything. We are not here to rule you. We are not here to erase you. A pause. But we are here to end something. The tension tightened across every system. Control without consequence, he said. You judged us from a position of certainty. You decided our fate before we ever had a chance to show you who we were. His voice lowered. So we showed you. Images of the Dominion fleet's disappearance flashed, brief, undeniable. Not exaggerated. Just enough. This is not a war, Elias continued. This is a demonstration. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then, a signal request broke through the broadcast. Cathral. Alive. Connected. Its image forced its way into the transmission, distorted at first, then stabilizing. You call this restraint? It demanded, voice echoing with fury. You have dismantled fleets, erased systems. You threaten the entire structure of galactic order. Elias didn't interrupt. You hide behind invisibility and call it peace, Cathral continued. You destabilize reality itself. We didn't start this, Elias said quietly. That stopped it. You decided we were weak, he continued. You moved to control us, absorb us, silence us. A pause. We responded. Cathral's voice dropped slower now. What do you want? The question echoed across the galaxy. Every world. Every species. Waiting. Elias held its gaze. Nothing you can't give, he said. The silence that followed felt different. Not fear. Not panic. Something deeper. Uncertainty. We want recognition, Elias said. Not as a threat, not as a subject, not as a curiosity. His voice sharpened. As an equal. The word landed harder than any weapon. Cathral didn't respond immediately, because it understood what that meant. Not surrender. Not defeat. Something far more difficult. Change. And if we refuse, Cathral asked. Elias didn't hesitate. Then we leave. Confusion rippled outward. Leave, Cathral repeated. Elias nodded slightly. We disappear again. A pause. But next time. The shadows behind him shifted, closer now, almost visible. We won't just watch. The transmission ended instantly. No fade. No warning. Gone. Across the galaxy, systems remained active. Screens stayed lit. But Elias was no longer there. And in the silence that followed, one truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity had just given the galaxy a choice. Not between war and peace, but between understanding. And something far worse. Because if they chose wrong, there would be no battle. No resistance. No second chance. Only the quiet, unstoppable certainty that humanity could end everything. Without ever being seen, for the first time in its long, unchallenged existence, the Galactic Council did not issue commands. It hesitated. Across thousands of worlds, civilizations waited not for orders but for certainty, for something familiar, for the old structure of power to reassert itself. It didn't, because certainty was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Doubt. They're bluffing, one delegate insisted, voice sharp but brittle. This is psychological warfare, nothing more. Then prove it, another replied quietly. Send a fleet. Silence answered. No one volunteered, because every fleet sent so far had vanished. Cathral stood at the center of the chamber, its towering form still, but not calm. Data streamed around it, projections of loss after loss, each one reinforcing the same truth. Nothing they had worked, nothing they had built mattered. They are not omnipotent, a strategist argued. There must be limits, energy constraints, range restrictions, something we can exploit. Then find it, Cathral said. We're trying, the strategist snapped, but they don't behave like a force we can measure. They don't behave like a force at all, another added. That was the problem. Humanity wasn't engaging in war. They were redefining it. A projection shifted, showing the current state of the galaxy. Trade routes inactive. Military sectors unstable. Communication grids fragmented. Civilizations weren't fighting back. They were freezing, waiting for something they couldn't predict. Fear is spreading faster than the phenomenon itself, an analyst reported. We're seeing internal collapses, governments losing control, populations demanding surrender without terms. Without terms, a delegate echoed. They don't care what humanity wants, the analyst said. They just want it to stop. The chamber fell silent again. Because that was new. The galaxy had faced conquerors before. Faced extinction events. Faced wars that burned entire star systems. But this wasn't destruction. It was pressure. Relentless. Invisible. Psychological. They've turned our own scale against us, one voice whispered. How, Cathral demanded. We're too large to respond, the voice said. Too dependent on systems, networks, coordination. A pause. They only need to disrupt one piece at a time. Understanding settled like a weight. Humanity wasn't overpowering them. They were unraveling them. Cathral closed its eyes, just briefly. Then opened them again. Establish a direct channel, it said. To humanity. The chamber stirred. You would negotiate, someone asked. Cathral didn't look at them. I would understand, it said. Moments later, the channel opened. No resistance. No delay. As if it had been expected. Elias Varn appeared. Not projected. Not forced. Present. You've made your point, Cathral said. Elias remained still. That was never the goal, he replied. Then what is, Cathral demanded. Elias studied it, not as an enemy, not as prey, but as something being weighed. Choice, he said. Cathral's claws flexed slightly. You've already taken ours. Elias shook his head. No, he said, we've removed your illusions. A pause. You still have a choice, he continued. You just don't like the options. The chamber listened, every word echoing across connected systems. Then state them, Cathral said. Elias nodded once. Recognize humanity as equal, he said. End all attempts at forced integration. Abandon the classification system that decides the value of a species before understanding it. His voice didn't rise, but it carried weight. Or, Elias held its gaze. Or we leave. That again. Cathral's eyes narrowed. You expect us to believe that, it said, after everything you've demonstrated. Yes. Why, Cathral pressed. Because we don't want to rule you, Elias said. Silence. We don't need to. That hit harder than any threat. Power doesn't require domination, Elias continued. Only the ability to act when necessary. And you've proven that, Cathral said quietly. A pause. Then answer me this, it added. If we refuse, if we fight, what happens? Elias didn't answer immediately. For the first time, he hesitated. Not out of uncertainty, but because the answer mattered. When we fought ourselves, he said slowly, we didn't stop until there was nothing left to lose. The chamber grew colder. We learned restraint, he continued. We learned control. A beat, but that doesn't mean we forgot how to end a war. No one spoke. No one moved. Because they understood. This wasn't a threat born of arrogance. It was memory. Cathral lowered its head slightly, not in submission but in acknowledgement. You're asking us to change everything, it said. Elias nodded. Yes. And if we agree? Ilya's expression softened, just slightly. Then we stop. Simple. Absolute. Terrifying in its simplicity. The channel remained open. Waiting. Across the galaxy, billions listened. Empires. Alliances. Civilizations that had never bowed to anything. Now faced with something they couldn't fight. Couldn't outthink. Couldn't outlast. Cathral turned, not physically but symbolically, toward the chamber. Toward the council. Toward the structure that had defined the galaxy for ages. Vote, it said. No speeches. No debate. Because none were needed. One by one, signals came in. Affirmative. 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 Unanimous. The result appeared before Cathral. It looked at it. Then back at Elias. It is done, it said. A long silence followed. Not tense. Not fearful. Something else. Final. Elias nodded once. Then this ends. Relief began to spread. Slowly. Cautiously. But before the channel closed, Cathral spoke again. One question. Elias paused. Ask. Cathral's voice was quieter now. Heavier. When you disappeared, it said, were you ever truly gone? Elias met its gaze. And for the first time, there was no distance in his answer. No. The channel cut. And across the galaxy, a realization settled into every mind. Humanity hadn't just been watching the war. They had been everywhere. The entire time. And if things had gone differently, if the vote had failed, if pride had won over reason, then the next phase wouldn't have been demonstration. It would have been something far worse. Because humanity hadn't shown its full strength. Not even close. And now, no one in the galaxy wanted to find out what that looked like. The change didn't arrive with an explosion. It came quietly. For the first time since the crisis began, no systems went dark. No fleets vanished. No anomalies rippled across the edges of reality. The silence that followed the Council's unanimous decision wasn't heavy with fear. It was different. Unfamiliar. Across the Galactic Council, systems stabilized. Trade routes flickered back online. Communication networks reconnected, cautiously at first, as if expecting something to break again. But nothing did. Because humanity had stopped. Exactly as promised. At the edge of a distant star system, one that had once hosted a silent disappearance event, something appeared. No distortion. No ripple. No warning. Human ships. Fully visible. They didn't arrive. They didn't exit warp. They simply were. Massive, angular, unfamiliar in design, yet unmistakably real. Sensors locked onto them instantly. For the first time, they could be seen. And more importantly, they allowed it. Across nearby systems, fleets scrambled into defensive formations out of instinct, but no attacks came. No signals of aggression followed. The human vessels remained still, suspended against the stars like something ancient and patient. Watching, but no longer hiding. They're just there, a commander whispered, staring at the feed. No weapons charging, another confirmed. No energy spikes, no targeting locks. Then what are they doing? No one answered. Because no one knew what peace looked like, from something that had just proven it could erase them. On the Council's central world, Cathral stood once more within the chamber, the same chamber where laughter had once echoed. Now, there was none. Only silence. And attention. Bring him in, Cathral said. No resistance. No delay. Elias Varn appeared at the center platform again, just as he had before. Alone. But this time, nothing about him felt small. No one whispered. No one mocked. No one underestimated. You've returned, Cathral said. Elias inclined his head slightly. "We never left," he replied. A ripple of understanding passed through the chamber. Of course they hadn't. That had been the point all along. Thrall studied him carefully. "You could have ended this differently," it said. "With conquest, with domination." Elias didn't deny it. "Yes," he said. "Then why didn't you?" another delegate asked, unable to hold back. Elias looked at them, not with superiority but with something quieter. "Because we've done that before," he said. The chamber stilled. "On our own world," he continued. "We conquered, controlled, divided ourselves into those who ruled and those who didn't." A pause. "It didn't make us stronger," he added. "It nearly destroyed us." The weight of that settled deeply. "You built a system that decides worth before understanding," Elias said, looking across the council tiers. "We chose not to replace it." Thrall's voice lowered. "Then what happens now?" Elias took a single step forward. "Now," he said, "we coexist. Simple, but not easy. Your council remains," he continued. "Your systems, your alliances, your autonomy unchanged." A flicker of surprise. "But your classifications end," Elias added. "No more dependent civilizations. No more forced integration. No more deciding who matters before they have the chance to prove it." The chamber absorbed that in silence. "And humanity?" Thrall asked. Elias' gaze didn't waver. "Humanity stands as an equal. No more. No less." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. Because everyone present understood. They weren't being asked. They were being told. Thrall inclined its head, just slightly. A gesture that, for its species, carried weight far beyond words. "It will be done," it said. And this time, there was no hesitation behind it. No hidden resistance. Just acceptance. Elias nodded once. "Then this ends." He turned to leave, but paused at the edge of the platform, just as he had before. Only now the moment felt different. One of the delegates spoke, voice uncertain. "Ambassador." Elias stopped. "What you showed us," the delegate continued. "What you are, how do we trust that power?" A fair question. Perhaps the first honest one the council had ever asked. Elias considered it. Then answered. "You don't," he said. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. "But you will learn to understand it," he added. A pause. "Just like we had to understand ourselves." He stepped forward and vanished. Not dramatically. Not violently. Just gone. Across the galaxy, human fleets remained. Visible, present, but inactive. Watching no longer. Hiding no longer. Existing. And slowly, civilizations began to move again. Trade resumed. Borders reopened. Conversations replaced silence. Not out of confidence, but out of cautious acceptance. Because the truth had settled into every mind, every system, every world. Humanity hadn't won through force. They hadn't conquered. They hadn't destroyed. They had revealed something far more unsettling. A level of control so absolute, so precise, that they could end a war without ever truly fighting one. And as a new dawn spread across the stars, free of shadows that once hid the unknown, the galaxy understood something it never had before. The most dangerous power isn't the one you can see. It's the one that chooses when not to act. And humanity had just proven they didn't need to.